It's Wednesday, the 20th day of April 2022. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you exclusively by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's news authority. Visit them at cowboystatedaily.com and on their Facebook page. Well, folks, we have a high impact storm coming as we get into the Friday through Sunday time frame. You're wondering why? Is there a football with a yard marker? Well, because sometimes the weather's a game of inches, and I'm going to highlight this here over the next couple of days. Because for some of you, this is pretty much a slam dunk. You're going to get a storm. But there's a situation developing where there could be some areas that could really have very little impacts or high impacts developing, whether or not the storm moves only a few miles. Really, a 50-mile shift in the track could have a big difference for some of you. And we'll highlight that today and also as we go into the next couple of days. It's going to be cooler and breezy today. We had a cold front come through last night that brought some wind, cooler temperatures. We did see a little more snow in the mountains, a few showers on the plains. It'll just be a cooler, breezy day, but temperatures bounce back nicely. 60s, 70s, and some 80s coming for Thursday and Friday, but there's also going to be east of the Continental Divide, a very stiff southeast wind developing east of the Rockies tomorrow and Friday in advance of that West Coast storm. Rain, snow, and thunder will be developing Friday through Sunday in the region. Typical weather for this time of year. When you get later in the spring, well, you get a little bit of everything with these storms. Travel and livestock interests in Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Nebraska need to monitor the situation. Right now, the areas that we think are going to have the highest impacts will be central and northern Wyoming, western South Dakota, western North Dakota, southern and eastern Montana. We also think the Pine Ridge area of the Nebraska Panhandle could be coming into play as well in terms of the highest impacts. Satellite photo this morning shows a couple of swirls. The system that drug the front through last night and early this morning is headed off into southern Canada there, and then you can see it very easily here. Here's the area of low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. Lots of signs of a cold, moist, unstable air mass over the ocean right now. This is just a recipe here. This air here is cold and moist, and it's going to come in and really be setting the stage for this changing weather coming this weekend. First, it's going to move into Washington, Oregon, and California, bringing those areas another good dose of needed precipitation. Taking a look at the 500 millibar chart for today, there's the low in the Gulf of Alaska off the Pacific coast. Here's the wave that's coming through now. So we're going to have a return of southwesterly wind flow and warmer temperatures. But I wanted to highlight the southeast winds. Now this is for tomorrow afternoon. All of these winds that you see right here are coming from a southerly to southeasterly direction and are going to be stiff and coming in from the south in response to this low pressure center here. So this will happen a lot of times. You will get just a very steady, persistent southeast wind. It really develops tomorrow. Then that southerly wind, as the storm gets closer by Friday afternoon, really gets going across New Mexico, along I-70 into Colorado and Kansas, I-80 into Nebraska. It's a southerly wind flow. Now this will transport warm air and higher humidity air into the region in advance of the low coming into the Great Basin later on. As we take a look at Friday morning, the low is now crashing into California, into Tahoe here, and beginning to swing in. What is likely going to happen, as you'll see here in a moment, is as the storm comes over the Continental Divide, it's going to reform into an intense storm over northeastern Wyoming and western South Dakota overnight Friday into Saturday. In advance, that southerly wind flow is going to produce some showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Across portions of Texas and Oklahoma could see some severe weather. What I'm showing you here is the lightning strike potential, and you can see even a few showers will develop eastern Wyoming, eastern Colorado, a few isolated showers and thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then you can see the showers and thunderstorms moving into the west coast. Now by Friday afternoon, there's a big increase in the thunderstorm activity in that southerly flow ahead of the low. See this cluster right here? This is going to be an area of showers and thunderstorms developing over eastern Wyoming, western South Dakota by Friday afternoon and evening. There could likely be severe weather in this axis right here. And you can see it from the Storm Prediction Center. We'll show you that here in a minute. Now, this is Friday afternoon. By Friday night, notice this area of thunderstorms developing over western South Dakota and northeastern Wyoming. This right here, The models are seeing the potential for 3 strong thunderstorm cells in eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and western areas of Kansas. This is likely going to produce rain for some of you there, but you got to get lucky. Problem is, there's going to be severe weather in these isolated thunderstorm cells right here, Friday afternoon and evening. So basically what we're going to have at first is rain forming in this area here with these thunderstorms. This is that severe weather threat that's developing for Friday afternoon and evening. I would not be surprised if this ends up getting drawn a little bit further west and a little further northwest with tomorrow's update. But you can see there's a north-south area of heavy thunderstorms that will be developing tomorrow down here, then expanding more northward during the day Friday. By Saturday morning, the storm is going to jump over the divide and want to start really forming right over the triple point of Wyoming, South Dakota, and Nebraska. I'm going to step you through the 3 model suites we use the most. Here's the European, here's the U.S. model, here's the Canadian. Notice there is strong agreement in the placement of the storm and the way the structure looks for Saturday morning with the European model and the U.S. model. The Canadian model is slower and further back to the west and catches up later. So we're starting to get to the situation here where our confidence level is pretty darn high that this storm indeed is going to be coming together. There's going to be some subtle differences, and this is where it comes to be a game of inches. So let's take a look at the precipitation totals forecasted through Saturday afternoon on the 3 models. And this is where you're going to start to see the differences. The European model brings the heaviest precipitation right to the Pine Ridge. You can also see there's heavy precipitation wrapping into the back side of the storm system that we really need to watch as potentially affecting Interstate 80 maybe, and even I-70 in western Colorado and I-15 into Utah. You can see, though, the axis of the heaviest moisture is right here. And notice, once again, North Dakota, eastern Montana getting pounced on again with another major winter storm. But notice there is significant moisture in northern and central areas of Wyoming, from the Wind Rivers, even the Bighorn Basin, the Bighorns, southern counties of Montana, look at that, and then along I-90 in western South Dakota and northeastern Wyoming. I really want to strongly urge stock growers in this area I'm outlining right here, I would start making preparations now. We're very confident that this is going to come together. There's going to be some southward or northward movement of this axis, but not by a lot. So it's kind of locking in, so to speak. Now, let's look at the differences in the models. This is where we get to the game of inches. This is the European forecast. This is the American forecast with the GFS model, and this is the Canadian forecast. The GFS model is a little more north with the axis. The Canadian model is more west-northwest. We don't think the Canadian model is doing a good job with this. The GFS model and the European model, there's just some subtle differences. Look at the differences. If you are living in northeastern Wyoming or western areas of South Dakota, this is where it's a game of inches. In places like Casper and Lander and South Pass, over to Shattered and Alliance. If the European model is correct, you're in it. If it's not correct and the American model's in it, well, it's I-90 and points north again, kind of like the last storm. And that Canadian model is probably too far to the northwest. Look at the snowfall forecast potential right here using the European model. As we go into tomorrow, as we go into Friday, we'll get more specific and we'll tell you where we're more confident or less confident in the precipitation. Look at the cold. Very cold temperatures come in on the back side of the system. We do think that there is going to be a fair amount of rain that falls first. It will start as rain, then turn over to snow Friday night into Saturday. So be prepared. We'll have more updates for you tomorrow. Have yourself a good Wednesday.